Good morning. I'm Rosalie Schaefer, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Manatee County, I welcome you to our hot topic today. Today, we're going to be talking about a policy issue of great concern to all of us at this time at national, state, and local levels. Multitudes of people are fleeing places where there is warfare, rebellion, or violent crime. They are coming from places like the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Latin America. They are looking to us and other Western nations for a safe haven. But many parts of Europe are being overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of migrants. Since World War II, the U.S. has had a policy of providing shelter for those who are truly endangered. Should we provide shelter, or as some say, should we close the door to protect ourselves? Our speakers today will talk about their work with refugees and how the system works. And how about our border? Do we really need to build a wall? We are pleased to have with us today immigration attorney Tom Goldman of the Goldman and Lockman firm, which handle immigration issues, and Jacqueline Williams and Ivis Triana of the Lutheran Services of Florida, their refugee and immigration services. We had a third speaker today, and she has not appeared yet, but if she does, we will put her into the program. After their presentation, we will invite questions from the audience. At that time, please use the microphone on the floor for your question and state your name. Okay, without further ado, we'll begin with Mr.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to first of all thank the League of Women Voters for asking me to speak today. I think it's really important that we have these types of discussions about immigration. We all know how emotional this issue has become, especially in the presidential elections. So I think it's only through discussions like this where we can reasonably approach solutions. So I commend you for approaching this particular subject as part of your group. When I was asked to speak, I was asked to specifically address several issues, including where are the refugees coming from? How do our laws differentiate refugees from economic immigrants? And to comment on enforcement of our immigration laws. About 784,000 refugees have been resettled in the United States since 9/11. And the President recently pledged that we would take in 85,000 this year across the nation, and 10,000 of those would be from Syria. Now, in the state of Florida, in fiscal 2015, approximately 50,000 refugees were resettled. In Manatee County, there were 82 Cubans and 4 Haitians. In Sarasota County, there were 312 Cubans and 34 from other countries for a total of 346. Now, by comparison, Hillsborough County had 3,743. So this will give you an idea of what's happening in the state of Florida. The state of Florida's refugee program is the largest in the nation, resettling more than 25,000 refugees each year. And Florida has become home to approximately 2,000 asylees each year. Now, an asylee is a person that files an asylum application and actually is granted asylum. Between 2012 and 2014, In terms of the Syrians, there were 5,280 Syrians that filed for asylum, and close to 2,000 of those were granted. I believe the best place to start our discussion about immigration and the kinds of people coming here would be to distinguish a refugee from an asylum seeker. A refugee is a person, and I'm going to give you a legal definition because this will distinguish them from the other types of people coming. But a refugee is a person who's unable or unwilling to return to their home country because of persecution or fear of persecution by the government or those the government cannot control. But the persecution can't be just simply like criminal persecution. It has to be based on one of 5 categories. It has to be based on either religion, race, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. So what that tells you is that a migrant may come here to seek a better life, to get a better job, to be with his family. That's not persecution on one of these 5 grounds of religion, race, political views, etc. As an asylum seeker, on the other hand, an asylum seeker is a person that's made it to the shores of U.S. territory. They may go to a border guard and turn themselves in and say that they want to file for asylum. They then become under the classification of a refugee as long as they have a fear of persecution. Again, the person can't be just simply a migrant who wants to be here. We also should distinguish between the refugee and an asylum seeker from that migrant, because the migrant is, as I said, a person who wants that better life and better job opportunity. What happens a lot of times is a migrant will hold themselves out as a refugee in this way. They know that they have not been persecuted by the government, but they come seeking a better life. But when they get here, they file an asylum claim, saying they have been persecuted. Now, the advantage to them is, if they do that, is that in many cases the government will just, instead of sending them back, will just let them go and give them a court date to show up. So they may have come over, for example, with a fiancé visa, or they may have come with a tourist visa, never having the intention to go back. Of course, the requirement of a tourist visa is that you're here temporarily, but they may just want to live here. So it's a shocking figure, but 40% of the people that come here with a visa of some kind don't go home. And we really don't have an effective system to monitor the people once they're here. And we certainly don't have the ability and the willingness to send all of those people back, from a political will to send them back. Now, not all of the people who enter illegally come through Mexico, obviously. We've seen Haitians come by boat for years and simply come up on the beach near Fort Lauderdale or somewhere in that area. Cubans, as you know, have come for years by boat to get here. We know that people from around the world make it to the Mexican-U.S. border to enter, and then they claim asylum once they approach a border guard or come in without being detected at all. 30% of the people who enter the Mexican-U.S. border are not from Mexico. Recently, Syrians were discovered entering with fake Greek passports coming through Mexico. Now, the reason it's important to distinguish the refugee from an asylum seeker and a migrant is lately there's been this concern about the Syrians coming into the United States because of the security issues, especially once that terrorist was found to be part of the Paris issue that happened over there. Then people over here reacted to that, and they said, well, maybe we shouldn't have any Syrian refugees come into the United States. So let's start with this question. Does the president have the authority to send Syrian refugees or any refugees into the state of Florida or any of the other states if the governor objects to that? And he does. And he does based on 3 different types of laws. First of all, international law gives him the authority to take refugees in. The Refugee Act of 1980 gives him the authority to place refugees within the various states. And the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution says that if the state objects, the U.S. Constitution and the Refugee Act, which is federal law, is going to take precedence over any kind of state law. So I think that most states have come to realize that the president has that authority to put people into different areas. Now, 31 states, once they heard about how many Syrians were projected to come here, they expressed an opposition. And they notified the president that they would like for him to put that on hold for a period of time. Florida was one of those. But I think Florida has taken a position now that they've conceded that they don't have the authority. Florida doesn't have the authority to stop any refugees from coming here. A few states have filed lawsuits. In particular, Texas and Alabama has filed a lawsuit against Syrians coming into their states. They've lost the first round, at least Texas did, and Syrians are being placed within the state of Texas. We'll see what happens with those states. State of Tennessee, the Senate and the legislature in Tennessee just passed a resolution requiring the state to file a lawsuit against the federal government to stop people from coming into the state who are Syrian. Now, there are about 24 states that have not filed suits that still have opposition. And so what they have done is to take action to try to stop the funding to the resettlement agencies. So if they're taking money from the federal government and then it's been distributed to the resettlement agencies, then these states are just taking the position that, well, we just won't give them the money that the federal government allocated. Well, in the first test of that hasn't worked very well. The state of Indiana, the governor there issued an order saying that no money would go to the resettlement of Syrians. And he was sued, and in a federal district court in Indiana, the court said that that was discriminatory against Syrians, and as a result, the resettlement agencies had to receive the money. There's still 23 other states that have that opposition. That federal judge in Indiana does not control what's going to happen in the other states, so we'll have to wait and see how the other judges view that. A lot has been said about vetting the people from Syria. And I remember even the FBI director got up and said that he wasn't sure they had the ability to vet everyone coming in from Syria. And that caused a lot of concern on people's part. The process of entering the United States is different for a refugee and an asylum seeker. The refugee comes through the Department of State, sometimes referred by the United Nations, sometimes it's a person that is trying to reunite with family that's in the United States, but they go through a vetting process. A refugee is someone that's outside the United States. They have to go through the vetting process in order to be able to come here. And that process has taken about 18 months. An asylum seeker is a person who makes it here, maybe by boat or maybe by legally with a visa. And once they file an asylum claim, which says that they've been persecuted, they'll be fingerprinted and they'll go to court, and there's a certain amount of vetting that takes place in that process. But the people that come here and never get caught and never file an asylum application, they're never vetted. In fact, I met with someone this morning with that type of situation, they've been here for many years, have never filed anything, have never been vetted at all. Another category of people coming to the United States, I was asked to comment about these children that are coming from places like Honduras, where the gang problems are so bad, El Salvador, some of the other Central American countries. Thousands of children have entered the United States in the last few years, and either they're detained in a facility, or if they've got family here, then they could be reunited with their family, but given paperwork to go see an immigration judge. So what happens a lot of times when these people make their way up through Central America, through Mexico, many of them are stopped by drug cartel people, and they have to pay a ransom in order to be free of them. Then they pay that money, then they get pushed or delivered to the other side, to our side. And at that point, they go up to a border guard and they say, I want to file for asylum. If they've got family here, then the immigration people will call the family and say, you've got a child here, and then they will send a plane ticket and then reunite that person with the family here. Now, once they get here, they are in a process that'll last a few years trying to become legal, because they will eventually be placed in immigration court. The process is complicated by the fact that you're treated differently depending on which nation you're coming from. For example, if you're a Cuban and you make it to dry land in the United States, you know that you're going to be able to file for an adjustment of status or green card within 1 year, after 1 year. If you're from Haiti or Mexico, chances are you'll be sent back, unless you file for asylum. And that, again, is where a lot of people who are seeking a better life, they're migrants, at that point they will file for an asylum so that they can get the benefits of staying here for a period of time. Now, another problem is simply our lack of enforcement. And I heard you ask, do we really need a wall? Well, I think, probably we could stop a lot of illegal immigration simply by enforcing the laws that we have on the books. It's illegal for an employer to hire a person without certain documentation, but it's not enforced. In the Bush administration, what would happen is they would go against high-profile companies and make raids, and that would scare people. And maybe they would decrease the hiring of people who didn't have documentation to some degree. But it's rare that they ever go against a low-profile business. Just a normal business, say in Bradenton, hires a person who is illegal. It's rare that a person would ever be charged with a crime for doing that. And so the laws are set up so it doesn't hurt in most cases, it doesn't hurt the person who is working illegally. The law is set up to punish the person who is the employer, but it's just simply not enforced. So what has happened is, used to, when people would get to the border, the last person they'd want to see would be a border agent. Now, a lot of those people, they find a border agent to turn themselves in because they know that they won't be sent back. They're given this paperwork to go to court. Half of them will show up in court, half of them never show up in court, and they're just living under the radar here. Now, the word had gotten out, especially these children, that if you make it to the U.S., that you wouldn't be sent back. So that's caused thousands of people to keep coming. So just last month, the administration made a big announcement that anybody that was from Central America and they had a deportation order, they were going to be arrested and sent back. The last figure I heard was that lasted about a week and about 21 people were arrested. but it made the papers and it scared some people, and maybe it slowed down a little bit. Now, you may wonder, why is it necessary for the administration to make that kind of announcement? Isn't it sort of obvious if you have a deportation order that you shouldn't be here, and maybe they would have already left the United States? But that's just not the way it works. Simply because you have a deportation order from an immigration judge doesn't mean you're going anywhere. Many people choose to stay here, even with the deportation order. There are not enough agents to arrest everybody who has a deportation order. There's not a system set up. There's not the political will to send people back. And so for various reasons, many times those people stay. Now, obviously, some people are deported, but there are several 100,000 people here in the United States with deportation orders that continue to reside here. Now, there are other ways for people who are either migrants or refugees or asylum seekers to stay in the United States. People from a number of countries have been granted what's called TPS, that is temporary protected status. So if you're from a country like Syria, Haiti, El Salvador, Yemen, and a number of other countries, if you were here on a certain date, then the U.S. government has allowed those people to stay here, and they give them work permits every year. The idea is, if there's a hurricane or earthquake, conditions are really bad in a certain country, then it would be inhumane to send those people back. In some areas like Syria, because of the war, it'd be inhumane to send the people back. So that is what has happened with a lot of people. They get TPS, and if they're here on a certain date, then, and if you don't have a criminal background, then you can stay in the United States. Supposedly, if conditions change, the government could send them back, but I don't think there's been a situation where conditions have ever changed, so all of those people remain here. If people enter illegally, and I'm going to close here, if people enter illegally and they stay here for 10 years and they marry a U.S. citizen, then they can ask for a green card. If they lose their case, there are appeals that can take place and they can stay here for years. If they are deported, but they tell Immigration and Customs Enforcement that they've got a family here, they can ask for special relief and stay here. And if they were under 16 when they came here, they may qualify for one of the new executive orders. So there are a lot of ways that people can remain here who have come here illegally. So I hope this at least raises some questions in your mind. We'll address those later, but I wanted to turn it over to the next person. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Jackie Matthews-Williams. I'm from Lutheran Services, Florida. I'm here with my coworker, Evis Triana, and Miss Rose Connor is in the back. She's our director. Thanks, Mr. Goldman, because you have really cut my presentation in half. So I didn't know, so he did a lot of the background. So I'm just going to really talk about Lutheran Services and what we provide to the refugees who come to our area. And, okay, let's start off. Anybody here who knows about Lutheran Services, you know the name, but you're really not quite sure what we do. Lutheran Services has been in Florida since 1992, and we encompass a lot of programs and services, such as Head Start and Early Head Start, foster care, adoption case management, youth shelter and family crisis counseling programs, guardianship programs, housing, employment, refugee and immigration programs, the Ryan White AIDS program, and disaster response such as tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, and other natural disasters. So it's a big umbrella with a lot of spokes, and so our program that we have in the Southwest Florida area, we encompass 10 counties from Sarasota to Naples, sorry, take it back, Sarasota to Collier County, and a few of the inland counties. Okay, skip to the charts, EVs. There we go. So Mr. Goldman had touched on that, but from our records, what we do here, we had over 48,000 refugees resettled in Florida from October 1st to September 30th. 95% of those were Cubans. And you see the countries that they were coming from: Cuba, Haiti, Iraq, Burma, etc. And this chart shows which counties they were highly populating. And you'll see Hillsborough County, over 5,000 of those are in Hillsborough County. Miami-Dade, which is very large, and they go all the way across the chart there. Palm Beach County, and Lee County is there. Hendry, Duval County, all those. But Miami-Dade is your largest populated of refugees, and then comes Hillsborough. And those are the specific numbers. Right there you can see Collier County has 1,500, Hillsborough has 5, Manatee County, Pinellas County, Sarasota County. So all those are the numbers of where the refugees are populating. Our programs, those are the 10 counties that we serve. You can see it's Manatee, Hardy, we go inland all the way down to Collier County. Okay, now we're going to talk about the services that we provide. We provide a one-stop shopping to help our refugees when they come. When they come, their first step is go to the Department of Children and Families. And Department of Children and Families gives them a letter. And in that letter it says, report to Lutheran Services. And that's where we will begin a comprehensive evaluation and assistance for those. So once they come there, they start with the intake. We have 2 intake counselors, probably per office, and that person gets all their information, the size of the family, their age, what kind of prior work they did in the country that they came from. So we get a very, very good scope of that person and how we can assist them. Their next step is they go to the immigration status. We have a paralegal service and an attorney who works with them in filing any of the papers that they need to be filed. We call that an ESA. And so either they need their EAD, which is employment authorization document, sometimes their living permanent residence, which is their green card. So anything that they may need, and those services are free to those who qualify, and the majority of them do qualify for those free services in our legal department. We have employment. Employment is our main focus of our program. We want them to become viable citizens and viable people who produce, and they want to. They want to work. You wouldn't believe the attitude and excitement. They come and they're like, we'll take anything. You know, they just want to work. And so our employment specialists, we work with them in trying to find jobs. You know, full-time jobs that has, you know, benefits. So once they have been here, they have to wait a while so they can get their employment authorization document. And usually that's about 90 to 120 days. And in that time, we work with them on their English. They get to sign up to take English at any of the school districts that offer ESLL classes. And so they do that. That's usually 4 days a week, either nights and evenings. We have in Fort Myers, we have ESL for work readiness. So things, English that will help them on their job, explaining paperwork, taxes, things that we take for granted that just comes natural to us by being here in this country, Social Security, W-4, W-9, W-2, you know, that is just like, whoa, that's a lot of, you know, W's. So they get all excited. So what we try to, you know, work with them so they'll understand what's coming up, you know, what's, you know, in their future. So, and then all that is done right there in our office. It's a 5-year, we get to work with them for 5 years, you know, always being there to assist them for whatever they may need. Mr. Goldman had went over that. He went over that. And so that's when we were talking about the case coordination, you know, everything that they do in their office. But Evise is our next speaker. I want you to come up, Evise. Evise is she came as a refugee. She's worked her way up. She's one of our office managers in our Sarasota office. So I would love for you to hear her personal story. It's very touching and it just motivates you. Evise?
Hi, my name is Ivy Triana, and I came from Cuba almost 8 years ago with my son Javier. He was 8 years old at the time. As a single mother, to leave my country was the hardest decision of my life. I had to leave my family, my friends, my profession as an engineer, but I had decided to start a new life with hope and dignity for my son and me. Before I came to the United States, I had imagined that American people would look like Rambo, maybe because of the movies that I had seen. And it was so hard. It was so hard. Just a time. I was remember my family. Recently, I lost my grandma, and it was unavailable to go to Cuba, but it's okay. When I got here, I didn't know English too, and I was eventually referred to the Literacy Council in Sarasota, and they changed my life. I also help about the American way of life. And Javier, my son, just a few months after we arrived here, said to me, "Mom, these people are really happy. Every month we have a new celebration here, like Easter, Halloween, St. Gibbons, and Christmas. And Javier especially enjoyed meeting Santa Claus. Of course, we don't have this in Cuba. For every celebration was new for us." Javier, who arrived without speaking any English, is now 16 years old and completely bilingual. And of course, at the moment, he speaks better English than me. Learning English also helped me and all the community support, advancing my career while working at Catholic Charities. I started working in Catholic Charities as a volunteer. And after that, I started work with them as admin assistant, and I was quickly promoted to the job developer position. Now, I am still working with refugees as a manager of Lutheran Service in Sarasota. At Lutheran Service Florida, we help our clients to get their first job and therefore be economically self-sufficient, which, in my opinion, is the best way to thank this country. I want to thank all my friends that helped me in the past of these 8 years, learning everything. First, when I came, I was thinking that people look like Rambo, but I was so surprised. Also, here in Sarasota, when every morning I see people jogging, working with their pets, and always smiling and saying, "Good morning." And then I understand that, well, this is my country now. And for this reason, after 4 years, I applied for my citizenship, and I proudly became an American citizen in 2013. For this reason, I want to thank all the community here in Sarasota, also Bradenton, Manatee, all the people that I met along these 8 years. My friends that helped me and understand how the greatness of this country. And of course, I want to say thank you all the America for giving me the opportunity to my son and me to live in this wonderful country. Thank you.
I have some brochures, so I will have them in the back. It's just our general brochure, so if you want more information about Lutheran services here in the area, you can pick those up, and some other information from the Department of Children and Families and Services. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're ready to take questions from the audience now. Please use the microphone on the side of the room there and give your name before asking your questions. I'd like to start off with a question for one or both of our speakers, whichever one wants to speak on this, and that is the agricultural workers. We hear over and over again they're all illegal aliens and they're put into terrible conditions, and the farmers say Americans won't do this work. And the government program that exists is broken or is too expensive or too hard to work with. Anyway, would you all like to comment on that?
I'll address the agricultural workers. It is a complicated system, an expensive system to file for what's called an H-2 visa for those workers. There has been a lot of debate between the employers on one side in the United States who say that they need the workers. I recently read about a company that closed their business because they didn't have enough workers to come over through the proper channels, and illegals were not able to work for them. So it has been a big problem. I think that what has happened is we don't have a guest worker program that is efficient and cost effective. And as a result, it's difficult for an employer to actually hire the people that he wants to have here and do so legally when we're talking about agricultural or landscaping workers. As a result of that, people are encouraged to just come over illegally. And they've been coming and doing that work for many years. And it's only in the past number of years that there have been some efforts made to stop that. I know even this year, for some reason, the administration has decided to reduce the number of people that are able to come here under this H-2 visa for agricultural workers and some other kind of workers. So that makes it more difficult in some ways for the workers, for the employers to find the workers they need. On the other hand, there are those that say, well, Americans would be glad to fill those jobs. And I think that's where there is a disconnect, and I don't have the answer to that. I don't know from a statistical standpoint whether or not that's really true, that Americans would do that work or not. All I know is that it is difficult with the immigration process we have to bring them in and to do so cost effectively. Okay?
The clients that we see at Lutheran Services, especially our Cubans, come with a wide range of skills. They can be agricultural, farmers, but the majority of them have been educated. We have doctors, nurses, teachers, engineers. So they come with a vast number of skills, and the only hiccup is the English language. Once they master and learn English, the sky's the limit for them.
Again, Pat Aarons, the League of Women Voters. Very simple question. How do these refugees learn about the services available to begin with? Usually from each other, from other refugees that they've met while they're here?
In the beginning, I had stated that when they come, they report to the Department of Children and Families, and the Department of Children and Families give them a letter, and that's how they get to us. And they say they're to sign up with an employment program so they can become economically stable on their own. Okay?
My name is Sue, and I was amazed that there's a high percentage of people from Cuba coming to Florida. I never thought about all the different levels, the legal status. Can a person come here because they want to?
Well, there are a lot of people that want to come here. But, the question is, do they have some kind of legal grounds to come here? People, first of all, may apply for a visa. If they want to come and visit, that's a tourist visa. If they want to come and work, there are different kinds of work-related visas. For example, an outstanding artist or a musician may be able to have a special visa because they are well known in their field, and they may be able to come here for a temporary period of time and work. There are people that come here to live because they invest in businesses. So if they invested money in a business, they may be able to come and work, and they create jobs and so forth. There's one visa which, if you pay $500,000, that in essence you can legally buy a green card for your family, but that's an investment visa. Then the other types of visas relate to people who have family here. So the way the law is written now, if you have a parent or a spouse that live here and you want to bring family members here, then they can bring those family members here. Brothers and sisters can file for each other, so there's a number of relationships that qualify for bringing people here. Now, that's where the conflict has come up, I think, because the people who come illegally have been accused of jumping the line. Because the people that do it legally, if you file for a brother or sister, it can take you about 10 to 12 years waiting outside the United States before you can ever come here and get a green card. And that is if you're not from certain countries. Some countries, 4 or 5 countries, have special lines that are much longer, some going as long as 20 years. So when they see people coming in that are illegal and they're able to file an asylum claim, and after 150 days file for a work permit, start working, and they're in the legal process of becoming legal, that is what has upset a lot of people who are trying to do it legally. So people can come here, but they have to have a legal way to come here. Okay?
I'm Carolyn Schneider. You spoke of green cards, and I hear about them. How do you get one, and what does that entitle you to?
A green card is lawful permanent residence. So that's all that is. And it's really not green, it's another color. But you get one, again, by qualifying under certain legal statuses. For example, if a family member files for you, then after a period of time, the person can file for permanent legal status. And then that means they can live and work in the United States with some restrictions on travel. They can't be out of the country more than 6 months without explaining why that happened. They can't be out over a year without abandoning their green card. So they have to be here most of the time. But they can live and work here and be treated, for the most part, like citizens. But there are some differences. And the other ways that they get green cards would be through the work permits, for example, or work visas. For example, there's a visa that's an L visa. If a person owns a business in another country, they start a business here that's owned by that other country, then that person that comes and operates this new business may qualify for a green card or permanent status at some point. There are visas where they can come and work and they never qualify for permanent status. So it's a complicated system and an alphabet of visas to be able to come and work here.
I have a couple of questions about the illegal people, trying to come across the border. All I know is what I see on the television, which is the same loop over and over, and the same family over and over. But anyway, do they come with their own documentation? Do they have a birth certificate with them, or are they just walking across and then hoping that they can be accepted?
Most of them have documentation that's, if they're from Mexico, they have a card that's an identification card called a matricular card. And most of them will have a birth certificate, but not all of them will. And there are a number of people who come across the border, obviously, with fake documents, because it's not difficult to get fake documents in some countries. And so they buy those documents and they're able to come across the border.
And then all the children that the news people are saying are coming across unaccompanied, then what is the path that those children are forced onto?
Well, what happens to a lot of the children is they will have some relative or friend hopefully they are traveling with someone, and they travel from Central America all the way through Mexico, and they, as I mentioned, they get up to a point where they need to go across. So either they have paid a coyote to get them across, or they are intercepted by members of drug cartels, and they have to pay ransom, and they get them across to the U.S. Some of those children do have family here already. Others, because of their family situations, may be just escaping a terrible situation and just want to come to America because they've heard that they'll be able to stay and they'll have a better life. And so once they get here, if they don't have family, they're more likely to be put into a detention center until there can be an immigration judge to hear their case. So this caused a lot of problems in terms of the court system. You know, it takes, even if you get sent to an immigration judge in the state of Florida, it takes about 1.5 years before the judge can hear your case, and that's without an appeal. So an appeal could take 7 months to 2 years. So these kids can be in court for a long time. And if they lose the appeal, as I mentioned, they can then ask for other relief from another agency and may not go back at all. So there are a lot of ways that people are getting here in a lot of different situations.
Is there a maximum, for the adults, is there a maximum stay in a detention center? Or does some organization take their case and plead their case?
They've been trying to put on some kind of restriction for how long they can stay there. The problem has been, we've even had some of our Florida immigration judges be sent to Texas in order to hear cases to try to break the backlog of cases.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a question. If you have a child that marries someone in Europe and then they have children, the children have 2 citizenships, don't they? The U.S. and the country. And then is there any limitation on when the children can come to the U.S.?
Well, first of all, the United States used to frown on dual citizenships, but it no longer does. So from the standpoint of the United States, we don't care if a person has another citizenship. That's not true with every country. So there are some countries where if you have citizenship from their country, they won't allow you to also have a U.S. citizenship. Mm-hmm. If the person that has let's say a child abroad and they are a U.S. citizen, there's no limitation on when they can come.
Oh, there is no limitation. So they don't lose it when they become like 21. They don't have to pick one or the other.
No.
They can keep the dual citizenship?
They can keep it, but they have to be careful to file certain documentation within a certain period of time in order to obtain a U.S. passport or what's called a certificate of citizenship.
Oh,
so
okay.
if they miss those timelines, then they may lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if they file within those timelines, then they should be able to have the citizenship. Okay.
I have 2 questions. First, the agency that you have, the Lutheran Relief Services, I'm sure there must be many other agencies that also obtain funds to assist refugees. Are they all religiously based?
No, they're not all religiously based, and you probably would be able to answer that better. I think that there are different ways that states receive money from the federal government. The way that Florida does it, it has set up an agency to receive the money and then funds it out to the resettlement groups. But would you like to comment on her question?
Just perfectly.
Oh, okay.
And my second question is, during this political season, we're hearing the term comprehensive immigration reform, and we just hear the term. Have you heard any details of that, or are there any ideas being floated that actually have some substance to them?
Well, comprehensive reform typically means that it starts with border control and then is going to allow people who have come into the United States and they're here. The figure you've most often heard is 10 to 12 million people. What do we do with those people? There would be a path to either permanent residence or to citizenship. So they want to stop further illegal immigration and then deal with the people who are here. That was what was tried in 2013 by the Senate and received so much opposition that it didn't really go anywhere. But that was an effort to have a bipartisan bill to get through to pass comprehensive reform. I think the problem has been that the last time there was a serious effort and amnesty was given was about 1986, and the deal at that time was that the border would actually be controlled, but that didn't happen. And so as a result of that, my own personal view is there's simply a lack of trust now, so that if they say they're going to have border control with all of this other, then there are, at least people in the House of Representatives are not willing to buy that at this time. So what many of those people are arguing for is, let's start with border control first. You show us you do that, then we'll talk about the rest of it. And that's why it hasn't gone anywhere. Okay.
I have a question. And you see this a lot in the media, so I think we should ask it here. What is the crime rate for refugees, immigrants? You hear that the people coming in are committing a lot of crimes, and they're a threat to our citizens' safety. Are there any reliable numbers on that?
From what I have read, the crime rate for the immigrants is about the same, or actually a little less than for Americans who are here. That's the only figures that I have no actual figures, but that I have read that is the case.
My name's Lois Dilley, and I wanted to find out what happens to these children that are brought over the border and put in detention for many weeks or however long it is. How are they taken care of? Do they just stay there? Are they taken care of to give any education, any medical attention? What happens to these children? Are they just left there like prisoners?
Well, for a period of time they are there. They do receive medical treatment. I don't know of any educational opportunities that are there, or whether or not they stay for more than, say, 6 months. But the goal is to either reunite them with family members here, and if they don't have any family members here, to get them in front of an immigration judge to see if they're going to actually have an asylum claim. The difficulty is for those children, a lot of them are claiming to have left because of gang violence. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to win a case for gang violence. The asylum law says that you need to be persecuted by the government or by those the government cannot control. But the courts generally don't pay a lot of attention, my experience has been, to that second part, the government, the people that the government cannot control. And as a result of that, most of the cases will deny an asylum application based on gang-related activities.
So they just send them back to the same situation?
They'll send them back.
That's very sad.
Yeah, there is a program that was started last year that was intended to keep the children from having to migrate through Mexico up to the border by identifying those children in their home countries and then giving them the access to come here as refugees. But as of a couple of months ago, I read an article related to that, and it said that no one had been approved under that program to come. So maybe they will in the future, but we just don't know right now. Okay?
Thank you.
We ought to give our guests a really big hand. Thank you. Thank you so much for your excellent presentations. I think we all learned a lot today. We're finished with our Hot Topic programs for the spring with this program, and we'll resume them again in September. However, we are having a special luncheon and program on Saturday, April the 9th, which you are all invited to. And we're very excited about our guest speaker. Coming to us from Tallahassee will be Florida Supreme Court Justice Peggy Quince. I have heard her speak before, and she is magnificent. She is so knowledgeable and inspirational, really. She'll be talking about the importance of a fair and impartial judiciary. I hope you'll be able to come to this. We have forms on the back table for you to take with you to make your reservation. It'll be held at the Bradenton Country Club, which is down the street a ways, just south of Manatee Avenue. So do pick up a flyer and register for this event soon. Thanks so much also to the Bradenton Women's Club for the use of their hall, and to METV for taping this program for later showing. For the TV schedule or to watch their program online, go to www.metvweb.com. Also see our website, lwvmanatee.org, for more news and information, especially for the upcoming August and November elections. We're going to be working on our voters' guides and lots of other information that you might want to use to make your choices. Thank you.